he decided that at some point that he needed to embrace his roots, and that lasted a year, and then he went to the National Enquirer.
So then, a year after embracing his roots, interviewing rabbis, he's picking through Johnny Carson's garbage, and he starts as a reporter there.
No, he came right in on top.
Really?
Yeah.
What are his duties running this? I mean, he's in charge of the day-to-day.
Yeah.
But is he bringing home? You talked about the laying out the surveillance map. Is he at home on the phone?
No, he was at work for 15 hours, a day, and then he would come home and do 3 more hours. My dad, it's really weird. My dad did not need sleep. He was like Ric Flair. He needed, 3 hours of sleep a night.
Did he on the other hand,
no, he didn't. He wear a bathrobe with his underwear and his big fat balls hanging out, because my dad was rather rotund, and you're a guy. When we're back before underwear became stylish, underwear was a matter of comfort, and like you would keep the rattiest underwear forever. Guys, like if you're an older guy, you remember keeping like your ratty underwear because they were comfortable. Right. So my dad had these horrible ratty underwear that were just with his big balls hanging out. And anyway.
Well, props to a big bull Jew. Yeah, because it goes against a lot of stereotypes.
Well, I think it was his balls. It could have been. No, Jews are known for having big cocks.
Really? Well, yeah. Milton Berle. Was it Milton Berle Jewish?
Milton Berle was a fucking moose.
He was. He was frightening. Yeah. But off your father's penis for a minute. Was there like a network of sources that he had available to him? Yeah. Like busboys and
just like Meltzer.
Valets?
Just like Meltzer.
Well, okay. Was there a more sophisticated network of sources available?
Yeah, it was a much more sophisticated network, but they had stringers all over the country, and they had people in, but I mean, mostly you needed Los Angeles, people in LA, and they had reporters, and the reporters paid off busboys and everybody in Joe Blow so they could get into Elvis's funeral and everywhere. And so that's why Johnny Carson called him a creep. Because I think it was the Michael J. Fox thing, because they had invaded the wedding, and that's, like I said, that's when celebrities wanted everything private, instead of getting famous by, banging, how did Kim Kardashian get? She banged Ray J, whoever he is. Yeah, right. 2 nobodies banging, and she got famous off it. But, and so he, so Johnny Carson goes, the guy who was in charge of this operation, he's a real creep. And we're like, yeah.
Are you privy as a kid? I'm saying a kid, but you're talking about the 80s, so you're already...
well, when we first moved there in the 70s, I was 12.
Right. Why Florida? Like,
that's where the National Enquirer is located.
They never wanted to be in LA? We were in the hub of all
Yeah, I don't know, but the owner was, the publisher, the owner, he was a mafia guy. I don't know if you have that in your notes.
I didn't.
No, he was mob related.
In Florida? Was it Santo Trafficante? Who was it?
No, it was Generoso Pope.
Oh.
Yeah, and so he was a mob guy, and so this was his business, and I think he was on the outskirts, not outskirts like like a waste removal manager, but not in the thick of it, with the fucking Santo Trafficantes.
Right.
But what was it? So I guess he decided, I think they were based up north, and then he said, we're moving to Florida. I'm sick of the winters.
So you were old enough to be aware of what your dad's doing, and also the identity of the National Enquirer, what it is in the landscape.
Well, I always said that.
So were you ever like, were you ever like, Dad, are you fucking kidding me?
Well, I used to say to my dad, I go, come on, this is bullshit. This isn't true. And he goes, we've never lost a lawsuit. We can prove everything in court. He goes, it's all legit. And honestly, if you look at the paper, the magazines, now what they do is like not People, what's the other one, the Star and all those, they'll actually have an article, and then they'll show an article. They'll show where they said 6 months ago this was happening, like say Blake and Miranda were breaking up, and now he's with Gwen Stefani, and they said 6 months ago we said this, nobody believed us, but look, now it's national news, So they lost. There was a big deal where they lost one lawsuit.
Mary Tyler Moore?
Carol Burnett.
Carol Burnett. Okay.
Yeah, they lost one lawsuit to Carol Burnett, but they won on the appeal. So, but nobody knows about that, so they never really lost. But it was Carol Burnett said they said she was drunk and being an ass or something somewhere, and she sued him. And then I asked my dad about it. He's like, no, he goes, she's full of shit. She was totally fucking drunk or whatever. And they won the appeal. I just thought, I figured I'd follow in his footsteps. So he was a fake journalist, I'm a fake wrestler.
Well, I was going to ask you also, I have here, what's the tie-in to wrestling here? Because there's got to be a thoroughfare from being around somebody. I was going to say creating stories, but you're saying they were legit, to you being a storyteller in the ring. Obviously, a connection.
Yeah, yeah, I didn't... yeah, that's actually a really good point. I've always looked at it from a ridiculous point of view. You know, he had a fake journalism, you know, and and I'm in a fake, you know, business. But I mean, not that it's fake, but I mean, but you know that. But yeah, no, I've always been a storyteller, and I never really thought about it that way until that he, being an editor and a journalist, that he was a storyteller. I never really thought about it that way until you just said that.
You mentioned your father being a workaholic, so he's doing intense hours at the office and then at home. Was he unreasonably a workaholic, or was this the requisite amount of time it took to run that paper?
It was a requisite amount, but he was still, I mean, I think he probably went above and beyond the call of duty.
Right. Which was tough for you?
Yeah, brutal. Especially because, you know, he couldn't show any emotion, and all his humor was insult based, you know, so he destroyed my sense of self-worth accidentally. You know, he didn't mean to, but, you know, by insulting me all the time. But it was funny, you know, so I knew he loved me, so, you know, even though he couldn't say it, and he would insult me, and so I would just ignore it, you know, because I thought it was funny, and it was funny. I mean, he was hysterical, but
it did damage.
Yeah, it just, you keep getting hit in the head, even if it's that little bit, it's going to hurt after a while, you know, and it's going to leave a scar, you know, and it totally destroyed my sense of self-worth.